They thought I was just another woman sitting in the back of a courtroom, quiet, forgettable, harmless. And that's exactly what I needed them to think. Because the moment I pulled out that badge and said the words, Special Agent, DEA, the smirk slid off Detective Brian Kessler's face like melted wax, and everything he buried started crawling to the surface. But to understand why a decorated narcotics officer turned white as a sheet in front of a judge, you'd have to rewind 8 months back to the hottest summer I've ever lived through. In a part of Bakersfield most folks like him only drove past with the windows up. My name's not what matters, not right now anyway. But the name they gave me for the job was Talia Rhodes. 37, ex-bartender, laid off after COVID, moved into a rundown duplex off Pershing Avenue with a teenage cousin and a fridge that wheezed louder than it cooled. No friends. No car. No questions asked. It wasn't glamorous, but that wasn't the point. My real name, my real life, stayed locked in a drawer back at DEA Regional. What mattered now was the job and one man. Detective Kessler had been on our radar for nearly 2 years. On paper, he was a rising star, high clearance rates, community service awards, a clean shooting record. But something didn't sit right. Evidence kept disappearing. Cases collapsed mid-trial. And certain dealers? They always seemed one step ahead of every bust. So they sent me in no badge, no backup, just me and a cover story thick enough to pass under the nose of a man who thought he could smell a Fed a mile away. I played the part well. Tired eyes, bleach-stained tank tops, worn jeans, the kind that said, "Don't bother." I walked to the store every day at the same hour, bought the same off-brand cereal, nodded at the same neighbors. Never talked too much. Never smiled too wide. That's how you stay invisible. Until I saw him, Kessler. First time, I was just walking home with a roll of paper towels. His cruiser screeched up next to the curb like he owned the block. He leaned out the window, sunglasses low on his nose, looked me up and down like I was something on sale. "You knew?" he asked, voice dripping with a mix of suspicion and boredom. "Moved in last month," I said, not looking too friendly. He smirked. "You with someone?" "Just me and my cousin." "Section 8. I shrugged. "Maybe." He leaned in closer, too close. "You see anything weird around here, you come to me. Not the other guys. They don't handle things right." Then he tapped my paper towels and drove off. My pulse was steady, but I felt the chill in my bones. This wasn't just a corrupt cop, this was a man who wanted to own fear. From that moment on, I saw him everywhere. Shaking down teens, pulling over cars without cause, leaning into windows, pocketing small bags, laughing like the whole city was his backyard. But he never filed the paperwork, never wrote reports. He didn't have to. He had Benton and Diaz as backup dancers. Benton showed up 2 minutes before every bust to justify the stop, while Diaz filed the fake charges to keep kids locked up or leveraged. I recorded everything. Tiny cameras hidden in sunglasses, keys, coat buttons. Audio clipped from cigarette lighters. Footage logged through encrypted apps under a burner Wi-Fi connection. It was enough to build a wall of evidence, but not enough to bury a man like Kessler. That changed one night when my cousin, real name James, undercover agent, posing as a high school dropout, came home with a bloody lip and shaking hands. "They grabbed me," he said, tossing a broken burner phone on the table. "2 guys. No badges. One said, 'Tell your aunt to stop looking around.' Then they dumped me behind the liquor store." I filed a soft report, coded phrases, internal flagging. Response came back within the hour. "Do not abort. You're close. We're watching too." But it wasn't just a mission anymore. This was personal. Kessler had put his boots too close to the people I cared about. He thought intimidation would work, thought silence was safer than confrontation. What he didn't know was, silence is exactly how we get close. A week later, I caught him on tape, not harassing some kid, not loitering at some corner store, but standing behind a seafood market with Deshaun Vickers, one of the biggest mid-level distributors in Kern County. Kessler took a fat envelope, handed over a clean burner phone, and gave Deshawn a friendly slap on the shoulder like they'd just traded barbecue recipes. It was all there. Clean shot. Clear audio. Timestamp. GPS. That night, someone turned off the water to my unit. No work order. No neighbor's water affected. Just mine. Message received. But instead of packing up, I planted the trap. I reached out to my handler and said we needed eyes from outside the state. Someone Kessler wouldn't recognize. They sent in Special Agent Lauren Vega DOJ, sharp as glass and twice as cold. We met at a broken-down gas station 2 counties over. I slid her a drive labeled grocery receipts. Inside, 92 videos, 74 audios, 12 witness statements. And still, it wasn't enough. Without catching him in the act of a felony, she said, a lawyer's gonna tear this apart. Then let's catch him, I said, on his turf. 2 days later, he texted me from a block number cocky as ever. Meet me at the scrapyard off Route 23. 11 sharp. Come alone. He thought he had me. Thought the little bruises and busted windows had worked. That I was scared enough now to fold. He had no idea I'd already wired the whole damn scrapyard with silent cameras, infrared drones, and a comm link so tight it made Langley look sloppy. I showed up wearing jeans, plain tee, hair tied back. No wires on me because the car had 4. He stepped out from behind a wrecked van, boots crunching over gravel, arms wide like some dirty preacher in a confession booth. You know, he said, walking toward me. When I first saw you, I thought, she's trouble. Too observant. Too quiet. I didn't blink. But then I figured maybe you just wanted in. There's room, you know. I take care of my people. He reached into his coat slowly and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside's every name, every cut, every cop who's ridden my coattails. You take this, you're in. You walk away well. Fresno's not safe for nosy girls. I stepped forward, took the envelope with 2 fingers. I'm not nosy, I said. I'm done guessing. Then I reached up and touched my glasses. That was the signal. No sirens. No shouts. Just the hiss of tactical boots on gravel and the click of 6 weapons locking in around us. Kessler turned, stunned, frozen in the light of headlights he never saw coming. Hands up. Get on the ground. Now. He barely moved. You were a plant, he whispered. No, I said, pulling the badge from my inside pocket. I was the reckoning. They cuffed him right there next to a rusted-out refrigerator and a pile of bald tires. Back in court a week later, the room was ice cold. Kessler didn't lean back that time. Didn't smirk. Didn't speak. Just stared at me as I took the stand and told the judge how for 8 months I lived as someone else to bring him down. When the first video played, the one of him laughing with Deshawn, pocketing a brick of cash, the courtroom was dead quiet. By the time the second clip played him threatening me on my porch, people were shifting in their seats. The defense tried to object. Judge shut them down. And then came the words I'd waited almost a year to hear. Detective Kessler, you are hereby remanded into federal custody, pending full investigation. But justice didn't end there. 2 more officers were pulled in by Internal Affairs. Benton cracked within 3 days. Diaz tried to lawyer up, but his paperwork did him in. I didn't stick around for the press. Didn't smile for cameras. I went back to that same duplex off Pershing, packed my things, and walked down to see Ms. Ora, the old lady who used to sit on her porch watching the world burn slow. Told you he'd get his, she said, not even looking up from her crossword. I wasn't sure, I replied. You never are, she said. But you do it anyway. That's what makes you different. I visited James, dropped off some real groceries for once, and told him he didn't have to play a role anymore. Then I left. But not for good. See, some stories end with a gavel and cuffs, but the real ones? The ones that matter? They end in quiet ways, with a kid named Andre walking home without looking over his shoulder, with a woman like Ms. Ora sleeping through the night, and with someone like me standing in front of a new group of recruits, saying, you'll meet people with badges who forget what the badge is for. And when you do, you better know who you are. And if you're still listening, ask yourself this: what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you risk everything to bring the truth out into daylight? Or would you let the silence win? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear what you think. Because justice isn't just about courts and laws sometimes. It's about who's willing to watch when nobody else will.